and the natural restrictions and all sorts of things, de Klerk understood this country's not going to make it. It's running out of capital, it's running out of a whole variety of things. If I want to be the guy who's in charge while the country actually hits bottom, I can just do nothing. Or I can save what's left of South Africa and get the world off our back by dramatically changing the nature of the government and by completely altering the sense of who counts as a citizen. Which is exactly what he did, which quote-unquote sort of saved the country, but didn't really save the country. He created a new country. Different rulers, completely different economy, different dangers, different conceptions of citizenship, same name. Very nice. All right? Now, when Jimmy Carter writes a book using the word apartheid in it, and it's about Israel, a name which he can't even bring himself to say in the title, right? What he is effectively saying, without having to say it, is that what the world did to South Africa is what the world should do to this country too. It's time to end this country as we know it, which is what Gordis said, which is what Jude said, what they're all saying. Nobody wants to be the bad guy and say we should have NATO tanks rolling across the Galilee, etc., etc., etc. But we have to do something to stop the war. And everybody thinks if we just stop the war, if we just get everybody to vote happily together, then we're going to stop it. So you have Jude, you have Gordis, you have you have Gordis, you've got Carter. They sound the same. You've got a whole bunch of other examples. I'll give you just one more example, the guy that we've already mentioned. Right? Let's go back to. By the way, you have some Israelis saying this. Very few left-wing Israelis saying this. You have a lot of Israeli Arabs saying this. By the way, if I were an Israeli Arab, I'd say it too. Hello? Right? I mean, if I was an Israeli Arab, how would I possibly want this to be a Jewish state? Of course I would want one country of all of the citizens. All right. In fact, that's what they want is totally understandable. Whether I have to acquiesce to that is another question altogether. But that they want it doesn't strike me as evil. Hello? For the same reason, by the way, that Jews constantly get up in arms when somebody comes out and says about the United States that it's a Christian country. Jews go banana because they don't want to end up in the situation that Israeli Arabs are in, which they're not going to, but it's a whole other question. The last example was one that we already mentioned, but I want to come back to him, Ahmadinejad. Now, I know, he looked goofy, and he does, and he's probably extremely smart, unfortunately. But I just want to, without getting into all of the question of is anybody going to do anything about Iran, are they really serious, without getting into all of that, I actually think they are pretty serious. I have no idea if anybody's going to do anything about it. I'll just ask you the following, sort of, you can flag this on the side in the margin if you're taking notes, literally or figuratively. Just think about the following little, hypothetical. Let's just say it becomes eminently clear that they're serious. And it's 1,000 days from now, which is what people are predicting, and they've got the bomb. Hypothetically. They've got it, and they're serious. Okay? What if, and it's clear, Hillary or Barack, they're just not going to, I'll say Obama, so it's clear who we're talking about, right? They're not going to do this. It's just not what they're into. Okay? So it's either up to us or nobody. And now more than half, or approximately half, of the world's Jewish population and more than half of the world's Jewish children live within the crosshairs of a guy who says he's going to do it and has the capacity to do it. And the only way that Israel can rid itself of those targets, which are deep underground, is with a preemptive nuclear strike. Because this is not Iraq. In the Iraq of old, a couple of bombs on the surface of the thing, you're going to do it. This is not that. What do you do then? I don't know. I don't want you to answer it. I want you to not sleep over it. Okay? And that's yet another reason why you do not want to be prime minister of this country. There's like 1,000 ones that come before that, but that's a pretty big one. But in any event, that's an interesting hypothesis, because you don't do that and just hit those sites. Kill a lot of people.
You can't be sure that you're going to hit those sites effectively either.
Right. Okay. So
don't sleep over that too.
Exactly. All right. So I'm not advocating. I'm just saying these are complicated questions. But I want to come back to Ahmadinejad in the following way, having nothing to do with the other stuff. Imagine that any other member of the General Assembly said about yet another member of the General Assembly that it ought not to exist. Imagine that France said tomorrow that Belgium ought not to exist. Sarkozy wakes up feeling lousy, he's got a headache, didn't sleep all night, gets up and says in a press conference, I really don't think Belgium ought to exist. I mean, the chocolate is not what it used to be. Right? Okay, well, they have a colonial past, as if French talk about that. But in any event, right?
They speak French already in Belgium. And
they speak French and Flemish and a variety of things. Or whether it's, I don't know, Germany saying it about Switzerland or Switzerland saying it about Italy, it doesn't make any difference. Imagine the world's outcry if any one member of the General Assembly said this about any other member of the General Assembly. It would be nuts. You can't even begin to imagine what happened in the General Assembly. There'd be special sessions and this and that. The point, of course, is that certain people have spoken of Ahmadinejad and said it's completely unacceptable for you to say that, and you really shouldn't do that, etc., etc. But by and large, that's another example of the world preparing itself, little by little, for the idea that there is something about this one country, as distinguished from any other on the planet, that makes it other, that makes it problematic, that makes it, a kind of a dysfunctional interruption of what otherwise would be a peaceful international world order. By the way, this week, to add yet another example, the House of Lords in London, this week, within the last 4 or 5 days, several members of the House of Lords came out and said, this business of England not negotiating with Hamas until Hamas recognizes Israel is raising the bar too high for Hamas. It's ridiculous. We should negotiate with them. They don't have to recognize Israel yet. Now, I don't think that merits a lot of discussion. But what all of these various things have in common, Ahmadinejad making those kinds of statements and the world not going ape, the House of Lords saying it this week, or members of the House of Lords saying it this week, and many of you probably not even having heard that it got said, because even the Israeli press doesn't get worked up about it anymore. By the way, the British boycott of Israeli academics. The British boycott of Israeli academics is, first of all, very sick. Because when Tzipi Livni goes to the British Union of Academics and says to them, you're treating the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as if it's a single-sided issue, their response to her was, it is. Now, if academics who make their living by being as nuanced, I know that's what academics are paid to do. Academics are paid to be nuanced. The sky is blue, which obviously it's not, right? Well, what do you mean by blue? What do you mean by sky? What do you mean by is? That's how academics, and the more footnotes you have in that little discussion, the more quickly you get tenure, or something like that. Right, but if academics can look at Tzipi Livni and say to her, it is a one-sided conflict. The right and the wrong do reside neatly on opposite sides of the border. There's something so perverse about that. So let me just say, you guys don't know me at all. I am by no means, on the very right, or even the moderate right of the Israeli political spectrum. By no means. So I am more than willing. I mean, it's critical. I'm going to talk about it, in a few minutes. Israel makes enormous numbers of mistakes. And there's been problems with the Zionist enterprise from the very, very beginning. And I think that anybody that's not willing to acknowledge that is setting us up for arguments that we simply can't win with reasonable people. That's not useful.
Unreasonable people.
What's that?
Unreasonable people.
No, with reasonable people. In other words, reasonable people are not going to buy the argument that we are perfect, or that all the good resides on our side, or that none of the evil resides on our side. Nobody's going to buy that. Nobody serious that you want to talk to is going to buy that. So I don't think, even if you're I think the best way of being a gung-ho supporter of Israel actually is not to start with that stupid argument, because it's wrong and it doesn't work. Other than that, it's a great idea. So this is not a long-winded way of saying that I think these academics are wrong because all the right resides with us. It's about saying that if academics can actually look at her in the eye and say, but the conflict is one-sided, then you're up against something that now transcends rationality. It transcends facts. It transcends research. And I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to. I think the point's clear. When you add together Ahmadinejad and basically the lack of international response, and Gardner, and Carter, and Tony Jute, and the House of Lords this week, and the British Union of Academics, and we could go on and on and on. It adds up to what I'm calling that first phase of those Holocaust Shoah displays, which is to say, you prepare the international community for an idea that you're not ready to carry out yet, but you're going to carry out one day. That's what's going on. What's going on is that the international community is being prepared for the idea of a world without Israel. Now, I know that sounds very hyperbolic, and it sounds like the sky is falling, and, well, the sky's kind of falling. It's not going to happen tomorrow, and I don't think anybody's going to attack us or irradiate us, tomorrow or next day or the next year. And I'm not suggesting that, it's all classic rabid anti-Semitism. It comes from a lot of different kinds of things. It's very complex, but I do believe that the phenomenon is afoot. That the world is actually speaking about and thinking about Israel in the kind of terminology that actually would make the eradication of the country a solution and not a violation.